Greetings, beautiful vibration lifters. Today we are talking to Scott Erickson. He is a speech language pathologist, a musician, and he has had a pretty incredible spiritual experience, what we're calling a near death experience in his younger years. So, welcome to the show, Scott. And if we can just go ahead and maybe talk about what had happened to you and what brought you to that experience that you had and go from there.
Okay. Yeah, so it's hard to know where to start. I'll just say that when I was very young, uh, I'd say 7 to 9 years old, I was asking some very deep existential questions. I had been more or less I was suicidal. I was keeping a knife on my windowsill and nobody came to notice, and I there was love in my family, but it was, I came like a lot of us, like, my broken home, like, or in the sense that my dad was raising us and my two brothers, or I have a half brother too. His mom was a little involved, but basically, he's not a very emotional guy. He's kind of a very scientific dude that not that he doesn't
Mm,
have emotions, but just not knowing to express them. I remember when he was like 15, I think, or when I was 15, he took us in the room, all three of us, and sat down. He said, "I read in a book. I should have been telling you guys all the time. I love you guys. I just want to make
mm,
sure." And I was
mm,
like, I always knew that because he's like a very self-sacrificing guy, working day in and day out. But at the
mhm.
same time, it was like, you're being emotional. Go to your room. Like,
Right.
get out of here, kind of thing. But I don't think it's all in part because of like trauma. I think people want to admit that, like, yeah, I think I did suffer childhood abuse, and everybody's pain's a little different. We all might, take it in different ways, but I'm pretty tough a kind of kid. In a lot of ways, I that probably shaped me, but in a lot of sibling abuse and things like that, but more so like probably more emotionally was hurt.
Mm,
Um,
mhm,
Also raised with the idea that no cable television,
mm,
dad kind of scientist for the government. So I kind of know early on, like, okay, that's what everybody's told. Like that, what we know is what we talk about. Critical thinking and understanding the world a little differently. Like there's like almost like there's a. It's just kind of harsh to know you live in a world as a small child where everyone is, kind of being lied to and manipulated, and that people are greedy, and so just real world talk was right there and up front in my face as
mm.
a very young age, and
The very
all of
young age.
that. Yeah, and as a child, that was, I think, what deeply impacted me the most from my own memories. I think there was a lot of that emotional stuff there, but for me it was like, why am I in this world? Why am I me? That was my question. Like, I believe everyone has an existential question. I was like, why am I me? And instead of like you or in you or in you or in you. And like I was sharing with you that human design, I was, prior to this,
Yes.
I question my purpose. Like I read that later, it's like that's the most defined thing in my whole entire
Right.
thing. And
Right.
so I think it's partly my personality. It was just thrust me in this position where I needed to know for whatever reason. I
And
was, yeah,
and you received some answers to some of those questions in your experience. Yes.
I absolutely did. Um,
Tell us
like
about that.
I'm getting goosebumps right now talking. Like
Mm,
I didn't know this was gonna happen. Um, yeah, I like did. Hmm. So I'd asked a lot of people probably get suicidal, and I don't encourage people to do this. I just want to tell people that at all. But I was very serious. I was going to put that thing in my belly. I don't even know how I knew that was the way to really do it. But
mm,
I was like, I was very serious, and I was very angry. I was very intense, and I was demanding an answer. And I have clairaudient experiences. That's the way I'm kind of gifted psychically,
mhm,
how it's shown itself to me is I hear things,
mhm,
whether it's my own voice or whatever. And I heard a lot of answers. Can I be honest? I heard tons of answers coming at me, but none of them were good enough because they didn't give me certainty on the topic. They did not, beyond the shadow of a doubt, answer my question. And I was just being rude to them. I was just thrusting them out of my mind, like, no, I want to know. I insist, I can't
Mm-hmm.
really capture that anger without really bringing it up. But that was more or less the gist. I was incredibly angry. Who was I asking? These were the
Mm-hmm.
kind of things I digested later on, because what was I going through? I was just doing it. Also,
Mm-hmm.
like, if I'm saying, why am I me? So I and me are two different things. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot you can ask right there, and who was I talking to? Well, regardless, let me just tell you, I like that word. You heard that band, Godsmack or something? That,
Yes.
that's what happened to me. Bam, just like that. I was boom. And I could not describe this experience for many years. Can I just tell you that? First of all, because like to talk about anything in my household that was non-factually scientifically based, you got laughed at. You got sent to your room again. You got and made fun of by your brothers too, who might then tease you later and beat you about it. And so
Uh-huh.
it was a matter of no. But I had a friend. I started smoking weed. Then we started he could we delve into those topics. That it became a place where I could start to slowly grow into what really happened to me that moment, but how I
Mm-hmm.
experienced it
Mm-hmm.
was like a light, like just hit me, come right from my center, going boom outward to like everything all in a split second. And I can't act like I fathomed everything, but I swear to you, I can remember it clear as day right now. How you see that it was almost like I could see the wind, like
Mm-hmm.
as it goes out, like the butterfly effect. Like you
Mm-hmm.
could imagine, you could see that all of a sudden just going out everywhere, and my thoughts spun around, like, I don't know, I think it was probably this way, more going maybe, instead of, because I was asking myself, why am I me? Why am I me? Why am I me? And then, my brain lit up with everything else lighting up, and I was like, all of a sudden I was like, wait. And I started asking myself, well, why don't I want to kill myself? Because I mean, that was the gist of what I was getting at with my previous question, was like,
Mm-hmm.
this pain, does it have to? I think I wanted to know my purpose, but at the same time, I didn't enjoy being in me. And so I was like, if I don't have a reason, I want to get the hell out of here.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, well, so I asked why, well, why don't I want to die? Right. And
Mm-hmm.
I said, well, and I think, yeah, that's where I'd have to say my family grief was an issue, because I didn't think of my immediate family. I think I was angry with them and stuff. They were part of the, whatever, the trauma.
And when you had that experience, did you feel that you were still yourself when you were going through that, or did you feel like you were just part of
I think
everything?
I disappeared into it in an instant. Can I just say that? It's
Mm-hmm.
enough. I just like I but like when time disappears, like you disappear too. Like when space disappears, like you disappeared. That's, I think, the thing that happened to me was somehow I was able to like uh I think my beliefs that follow, I think everything's connected. Every single thing is connected all the time. There's just a matter of distance between things, and everything came from something, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
everything came from something, and it's kind of spreading out like a tree, like it came out of me in all directions. Like we all came out of something, and the more you go back, it becomes a more centralized source. And I think even time and space are one of those things, and they go back to something, to a oneness where it doesn't exist. It was a way for God created everything to experience itself in multifaceted number
Mm-hmm.
of ways, or whatever, and I think we're blessed with the idea to be able to conceive that, and
That's right.
we can create, we can become self-aware of it. And I think that was really, I mean, I felt really important and special, and I resist that idea, because I don't want anyone to get the impression that I'm necessarily more special than them. I think I'm special in a
Right.
unique way, but I think that that everybody has this essence of this creation in them. And
Hmm.
did I answer your question?
Yeah, yeah. And how long did you feel like you were in that space where the light hit you and you were seeing the butterfly effect? How, I
I
mean,
I feel like all that happened instantly. Can I say, but it felt
mhm.
infinite.
All
Can I
right.
just say that? It
Mm-hmm.
like was so like it's still stuck in me like it was yesterday. I
Oh,
never ever contemplated suicide again. If I get up or down, it's not even a possibility. Like I think my thoughts are still turned around. Now
mm-hmm.
I've had experiences where my brain feels like more lit up than it was then or whatever, but I didn't really pay attention to like how long did that feeling stay with me there
Mm-hmm.
and then. And I think there was definitely like a part that
Right.
faded as I'm like
Right.
back in my body, and there was like a shifting of my spirit in my flesh is what kind of happened in a
Mm,
weird way. And then I would say that yeah, there was like a coming to, like I'm here again. But
mm,
and you know, if you take your mind off that, you might not notice it really.
right.
I didn't really spend a lot of time thinking about that, to be honest.
Right. Right.
But can I tell you though what my answer was though? Because I
Hmm.
told you my question swapped around. I like to tell that part of the story because that's the beautifulest part of it. Like I was like my family, yeah, but my friends, the teacher at school, just the random people that I know smile at me and they like me a little bit, just a little bit. I said those people, that's why I shouldn't die.
Mm.
Like yeah, because those people, they love me in even in a little way, and I feel it. And if that's the only place that I'm feeling love right now, then that's what I should be living for. That's who it is. And even though I wasn't necessarily always happy right away after this experience, like I told you, I never thought of suicide again, but I wasn't necessarily in bliss because of
Mm-hmm.
that alone. But I realized that if I can make you smile, I smile. And
Right.
and that is just a breath of fresh air when you just feel trapped in your own torment or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So
Did
that
you notice any other entities that were around you, or did you feel the presence of anything else when you were in that space?
so I definitely feel like something touched me to open me up. I
Mm-hmm.
don't, I can't, like, there was no personification of anything,
Mm-hmm.
but I could talk about angels. Maybe it was my angel, but I think it was more powerful than that.
Mm-hmm.
After thinking about it and talking with other people, because but liken it to a near death experience, it was also a born again experience. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I immediately said, not because I was forced to, I was like, I'm gonna live for these people. This is what's meaningful to me now because I
Mm-hmm.
see and I feel important for doing that. And I said, but so to me, I think it was Christ consciousness. If I had to just put a word on it, I think it didn't come to me in a name. And so I really, really, that's my religion, is that it's a universal force and it doesn't have to use words. But
Mm-hmm.
but I believe that's what I believe it was. I
Wow.
believe Christ consciousness is a powerful universal thing anyone can access.
Mm-hmm. So when you entered into that realm, you were saying that you were suicidal and you had the knife by you. Did you actually inflict any harm to yourself, or do you feel like spirit had heard your question and came to answer it at that moment?
No, no. And the way I go about that is I'm not, like I shared you with my human design. I am not a half-assed person. I'm not a
Mm-hmm.
cry for help kind of guy. If
Mm-hmm.
I'm an all or nothing guy. If I'm gonna go into it, I'm gonna go into it. But yeah, I felt the point on my belly. Like I was
Mm-hmm.
pressing it. I
Okay.
didn't I didn't insert it though. But it wouldn't have been the only time I held it there though. Can I
Mm-hmm.
just say that? I contemplated this many times
But
and often in tears.
yeah, But that last time, that was the time that cured you. Did you find when you came back, your
It was
life was different in how, in what way was it different after you came back?
absolutely, it was instantly different. Like I said, like first of all, I had a knowledge. Like when you know something, you can't take it away. Like
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? Like how do you define it? Oh, I have a beautiful poster on the wall that I like to look at. It's like a hard to understand thing. For anyone listening, I'll tell them what it is. It's an MC Escher drawing called Gravity. It's the name is in German, but it translates to gravity. But if you look at it, it just looks like a bunch of legs and hands, and it's sticking out of some kind of 3D object with points, and you're like, what is this? But once you realize, you start grouping the colors, you realize there's some heads in there, then you realize it's a bunch of creatures all facing a certain direction around there. And then so I had figured that out by studying it. When you go back and I look at it again, boom, instantly I see the whole decoded puzzle. Do you know what I mean? My mind doesn't have to take the time to do the pattern recognition over and over and over. Just like I learned how to read, and my mind, I'm very quick visually. This is like it's not so much my auditory kinesthetic connection is not as fast, but like I compensate because I'm very fast with the eyesight to the auditory type connection, and I'll just decode things on walls as I walk by when I read. I take that for granted. A lot of people I think have to spend more time to read, but like I don't have to train myself to read over and over again. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just like that. Like seeing how everything stems from a source,
Mm.
realizing that there's a central life force energy from which everything stems, and so there's a central uh I mean, you could say a purpose, yeah, and I'm tied to it. Like it's without giving it a name, we all fit into it. You know,
Mm.
we all have a unique specialized position in it. That's like you couldn't be removed from it without changing the whole thing. The whole thing.
Right. So
It's pretty
you
incredible.
that is incredible. So did you feel you felt connected, or you felt like you were able to touch a divine intelligence? And once you were able to touch
Yes.
and experience it, then there was no going back. You realized it was a real thing, even though you were 9 years old.
You
And
couldn't you I couldn't even describe what happened to me, but nobody could tell me anything to make that go away. I don't care
mm,
who you are, where you are, ever. I don't think it's ever going to happen or change me anything. I've talked to so many Christians and different people, different theologies, and we always connect on this, and what's in common is a passion for the spiritual, and some of them have found it and they feel so, and like, and they talk about it, and it's just like, oh yeah, and they don't want anything from me but just to share that. And others sometimes though, that there's a, what's the word, like proselytizing, like
mhm,
there's a, like, come to our church and talk about it, or
mhm,
be part of
mhm,
our group and talk about it. And I'm not opposed to group, but like I'm not searching. Can I tell
mm,
you that? Like
mhm,
I found it. I know what it means to me. And I do like community and I want to share with people, but at the same time, I'm not against showing up once, twice kind of thing. But I don't like, I feel like a lot of times those groups, people find a piece of it in there, and they're looking for more. Or I don't want to criticize anybody's
mhm,
anything. You know what I mean? But because I mean, I was raised to believe that that stuff is there also just to um I would say we would all be a little naive to think that people didn't try to take advantage of religions to try and control people, you know.
right. Yes, yes.
So that was
Very
kind of,
true.
that's kind of the
It's true.
scientific.
It's like a catch 22 in a way. The teachings of Jesus are, he's a master teacher, and greatest, arguably the greatest teacher, and spiritual leader in so many ways. And what he was doing, and then the church, realizing the power that he had, or the I guess you would call the royalty, the ruling elite at the time saw the power that he held, and was able to manipulate and take that in order to control the people with this religion, which is not in exact coherence with his teachings. So, But at the same time, if you are involved in Christianity, you are getting the teachings of Jesus Christ. Um,
I think the royalty got duped.
mm,
Like
yeah,
they didn't know that they were enlightened,
yes,
or maybe they did, and maybe we need to have a little mercy, for they had maybe a divine purpose and they didn't realize it either. I mean, perhaps.
yes. It's yeah, I have a friend that is he was kind of a really rough guy when we were kids. He would get me into fights. I had to save him, and
Mhm.
I got beat up a few times because of him. Helping him out, and he I was always a nice guy, but we were just really good friends. And but he was kind of mean. He was kind of a mean guy. But later in life, I saw him, and he was such a nice guy and just a beautiful human, turned into this beautiful guy. And he was talking to me about Jesus and believing that if you don't say this prayer that you're going to go to hell. And I was arguing with him, but then I was like, you know what though, dude, you're a much better person now than you were
Right.
when we were kids. Because and if that's from with Christianity, I'm all for it. That's beautiful. um have you had any do you feel like you received any psychic or any special spiritual gifts from that experience that you had, that you were heightened awareness, or you said you're
Yeah.
clairaudient? Were you clairaudient before that, or was that something that you feel like stems from that experience?
I never contemplated clairaudience before that, but I definitely remember casting out all the answers that came into my mind. My
Mm-hmm.
mind may work with words somehow. Um, I like to read it at a pace where I'm hearing it outside inside my head. I've got an inner dialogue for sure. I mean, I actually think in geometries and things like that, but my words kind of, I can see where they move among that. I'll say that's a difficult thing to describe, but I pursued that, being able to describe that,
Mm-hmm.
and talk, translate what I'm seeing into words with a passion. I studied linguistics in college. Before that, though, I became a freestyle artist.
Mm-hmm.
I could rap right here and let you know real clear where I'm coming from every
Mm-hmm.
day of the year, and it's a momentary thought, but I'm saying so omnipotent, various things I concoct. It's a potion, but just everything's in motion. I can drift back into talking about something, and
Mm-hmm.
trying not to rhyme sometimes has been more difficult than continuing to rhyme. I'll just say that I achieved a certain level of wordsmithery that I'll even hear sounds like a crack of a branch or like a bird, and I'll hear words that rhyme with those sounds.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like super aware of there's a lot of things, and I've had some experiences. So I mean, my theory, yes, and I'm wanting to explain to you how I developed it more and more is where I'm kind of going with this preface. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like I believe free energy. You free up more energy, and your mind finds. And how do you free it up? I'll tell you that in a second. But by freeing up more mental energy, and not just like energy, um a computer hard drive. Yeah, like you have space on your hard drive, you also have RAM, processing memory. That's what I'm saying. You clear up more processing memory. Sorry about that. You clear up more processing memory,
Mm-hmm.
which is, cleansing your traumas. They're just consider sitting in you, consuming emotional energy that you're carrying with you constantly. You learn to minimize that. The free energy is going to go somewhere, and you're going to find a new equilibrium. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I think also though you can free up a ton of energy just by understanding the chaos. Like
Mm-hmm.
you see these patterns. If you don't, they're just data. Your mind hasn't said, oh, I see this pattern. All of a sudden a line becomes made out of what was just static, and things become much clearer. And so if your mind naturally wants to understand certain things, your psyche is trying to invite things into your life that will bring up those traumas to get them healed. uh,
Mm-hmm.
but as well, like, and that was part of me being traumatic, is like as a young child I was shut down in conversation when I thought I saw the solution, attempted to explain it, was not very awesome at doing it, and then just, because I was the youngest in the family, and in a, the communication style in my household is very, like, I think it's Northern European, they say, just, you kind of interrupt, you compete for the floor. And so if
Mm,
you really didn't have something to say right then, that made it keep that furthered the thought, you kind of got shut down and butt out of the conversation for it. And it can be pretty so I always want to be able to say, look, I see why you both are arguing.
right.
If I could only explain it to you, you know? And I think that drove a lot of my pursuit to develop a linguistics degree. But I've studied neurolinguistic programming. I've
Mm-hmm.
studied anything related to it. And I'm trying to turn this thing off. I don't know who it is. Let me just actually unlock my phone and do that. But you can edit this out. And now it doesn't even want to let me do it. Let me wait a second till it stops ringing.
Can I ask you, while you're doing that, have you had any other spiritual experiences since that time when you're 9 years old and you had that NDE?
Absolutely. Like, so I was going to lead towards like my confirmed clairaudient experiences. Yeah, I mean, I would consider that spiritual. I've had
Hmm.
can I just say that, as
Hmm.
someone raised by very uh a very scientific person that didn't, if you wasn't tangible and you couldn't measure it with an instrument, it pretty much did not exist. Like, I
Hmm.
have been forced to explain what was going on, because I've had so many things happen to me that are profound.
Hmm.
Like, but just to say, for example, these clairaudient experiences, and I think, for me to postulate angels or something was helping me at that time is not out of the question either, because I think that you have like spiritual antenna. I mean, this was just a friend's explanation for what happened to me when these, but I was going through my divorce, right? I had a kid, custody. We've probably all gone through some pretty rough stuff like that. But someone wrenching your child from you is probably the biggest pain you could feel in this world. And and not knowing how to solve that, having people biased against you, having to all of a sudden climb this super uphill battle as a man with a bias. They don't know you. You have to prove yourself in the courts, and there's a lot of reasons why the courts may be biased against men. But you stand true, and I'm a testament to it. I got custody of my son after he was 3, full custody. Not
Awesome.
because I wanted to remove the other person from the situation, but it was quite the opposite, and they saw that. But I had an extremely uh traumatic time. I mean, I was living in my truck, um, parking it out from my friend's house. Happened to have a futon mattress just fit perfectly under the camper shell in the back of there, because I had to pay spousal support and child support. I was using the gym to shower, or my friends, but mostly the gym. And I was pulling off my substitute teacher gig, and basically trying to, go back to school, which inspired me to become a speech therapist, working alongside some of them. But basically, I made it work, and things were really hard. I was in debt for, I wouldn't say forever. I'd say my thing was very traumatic. My custody experience was very traumatic, but short and sweet in a way. No, I
Mm,
didn't know if I'd ever see my son again at a certain point, and
mm,
and
mhm,
yeah, it involved a lot of stuff. Yeah, I mean, I don't like to talk about it too much, but it's a whole other
mhm.
story. But yeah, I
It's,
went to jail. I was exonerated, like, but it wasn't my first attempt. It was a thing that she would go to different counties and then raise a new fuss, and so there was a pattern of instability there. But don't want to delve into that. That's a whole another traumatic topic. But during that week, during this same week, I because when I'm in my head and I'm laying down, like, especially when I'm just waking up in the morning, or like trying to go back to bed, or not wanting to get out of bed or whatever, like, just kind of like being still in my mind with my eyes closed, that's when I'll hear things quite often jump into my mind. Like, while I'm talking, I'm hearing myself. Do you know what I mean? But
mhm.
if I'm silent, that's when I'm starting to hear things. And yeah, twice in the same week, very confirmed experiences. The first one was my son's first step. I didn't know it took place. Well, I did. I was like, I saw myself going in and out, and then bam, I was like right there. As I went by, I could literally hear the sound fade in and like fade out as I went by, and it was like, look, he's doing it. But I knew what they were talking about. I knew
Mm.
they were talking about he took his first step. I had a supervised visit later that day. And I told him, I said, I think he can walk now. I think he could do his first step. And sure enough, he took 2 steps for us right there that day, being a supervisor. It was a beautiful thing. I did not miss that. And
Wow.
and in that same week, I had also heard uh I had also heard kind of going in and out of a room. It was over there though. I could still see where it happened. I'm like, and it was like, oh, he's definitely going to get fired. And I was like, for the life of me, I couldn't think of why I was going to get fired. I was like, what did I do? Do anything wrong? I could not remember. Sure enough, and this was not this substitute teaching gig, but this was I had a gig at a health food store, and I believe that's another way to free up energy as well by detoxifying. Like you have
Mhm.
physical things consuming energy as well in you. So,
Mhm.
but there's a lot of ways to free up more energy. I think that in general, though, freeing up more energy is the way to unlock more and more of these experiences, and I think it's something your body naturally wants to do. So, like, kind of follow yourself in some ways. But I think that I got sure enough, I got a call later that afternoon asking me to come in early to work. Or they like I was like, well, I can't come in early. I got something right before it. And they said, oh well, uh, or were they talking about coming early tomorrow? I was like, no, I can't. And they're what did they say? Well, they say, oh, we'll come in today then or something. Boom. Here's your last check. Boom. And it was something very arbitrary, but it was like, well, really? But I
Mm.
think my mind was preparing me for those things because I was in such a fragile place mentally that if I
Mm.
didn't know they were going to happen or if I missed them or something, they would have been devastating to me. I think that's
Mm.
essentially why my spirit guides or my spirit antenna or whatever pulled those in. But I've
So,
also had out of body experiences too. I
oh
will say,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, I can't limit the amount of spiritual experiences I can talk about with you today.
So, do you feel like the clairaudience is there are your spirit guides kind of giving you a heads up about things? Or
You know, I think we are bigger than our bodies. Can I say that?
mm-hmm,
And I think that we're also multidimensional.
mm-hmm.
Um, so they could be you.
You think
They,
it's
but they could be. That's the hardest part of it all for me. Like that, like knowing how to sort that the chaos of it all. But just earlier today, I heard pasta, and that's what this girl I'm dating wanted to eat. And I was like, no way. A simple thing, but
mm-hmm,
I didn't spend much time on it. But we know each other well enough that should she mention it, I was like, no way. Right when I sent you that text is what I was thinking. She's like, no way. 10 minutes before that, that's what I'd said that to my friend because I was looking at a recipe, and I'm like, oh man. So it was like, but that was a pretty confirmed. Like I heard it from somewhere. I actually have a thing where because of the kind of the freestyling, I did a lot of experimenting with it. And I think by understanding linguistics, like the patterns of language, I made that much more easier to navigate and require less energy for me to do it. I've also got that like in the moment throat chakra thing going on with my human design chart, I guess. And so it's like I think that it's something it'll happen more or less with other people, but it happens with everybody. Like there's like an overlap in our field energy, I would say. And like I said, I see geometric patterns, and then the words are just kind of like a linear thing trying to trace through them to explain something. And I can actually feel sometimes when I'm like, I just said something and it was an aha moment for the other person. And then I feel like, boom, like their geometric shape just changed. And And now if I wanted to follow it, I could talk about the new epiphany they just added to mine. It's so
Mm.
hard to say. I've tested it.
Hmm.
Uh, when I try to use my own words linearly, it's been difficult. But if I backed up and I said, look, this was the relationship of the concepts that we were talking about, and it's actually like this, and I described the actual geometric image itself, I've had to be like, yes.
Mm.
That was the first time I was super confirmed on it. Because it happened like 3-4 times in the same conversation with one buddy. Sometimes people that are really good listeners, it happens to really more often.
Wow.
Uh,
And
yeah.
so, clear audience, and then you also have had some out of body experiences after that one. Can you tell us about one of those? One of the ones that stick out in your mind the most?
Well, the one that sticks out the most was the one that I have never read about or anything like that. But if you've read about some of these out of body experiences, people talk about, and I've had an intentional one where I exited my body following a method. Uh, I'd say I don't. I haven't been pursuing it. I've had like doing it over and over.
Hmm.
Although I think it would be cool to be able to do it every night. I'm not against it. I and I've had it happen at a meditation retreat
Hmm.
where, but like a lot of people will notice like like coming out of their body in a very vertical way or a horizontal kind of way.
Hmm.
And I've had those happen to me both. Like supposedly there's like ley lines, I guess is the rationality for it. And like sometimes your body will get pulled out and like and it'll want to align with one of those lines, and if you're like to the left or the right of it, like that's sometimes why we like horizontally will drift over to them.
Hmm.
There's a book that I like found, like I think was the most informative about it. Hold on, in this room, but like there's one by this guy Sylvan Muldoon or something. I can look this
Okay.
fast, but like, because there's a lot of these books, I was researching them, and they talk about the same, um, a lot of them have the same information. Like, but this book is written in like what, I don't know, the 20s or something. It's by a young guy that stuff started happening to him. His parents were esotericists or something, and they and so a scientist, this is before scientists said foo-foo all that, and there was a scientist who was like pulping his descriptions of, because he could do it every night. He was super fluent with it. And so he describes it in thorough detail. And I find that yeah, Sylvan Muldoon, Muldoon. He wrote it in collaboration with that scientist guy. But there's a book about astral projection by him, which
Yeah.
puts me to sleep because of the language. It's so scientific, like, but ironically, but no, but I think that he's the only book where I read where why you travel horizontally sometimes. So
Mm.
I had that
Mm.
happen at a meditation retreat after I had this big release, a Sankara release. That's how they described it would happen. They said, don't even expect it in this lifetime. It was at a Vipassana retreat, a 10-day silent retreat. And
Hmm.
the 10th hour of the ninth day, every 10th hour of meditation in the day, you get to do it in your own tent. I was laying down doing it, and uh I felt all of a sudden like my head fall back, and like, but and I like snap back into it because I was like, my head, I could literally feel like, here's my head, here's where like the information is, and like my like mental body, I like to call it a mental body, I don't know, it's like it was like it literally fell out, and I could see like a Venn diagram, almost like I could like not think those thoughts over there anymore. Only these ones, and none of them anymore. I mean, but still you have some presence of mind here, but it's not the same as what you know when you're in your skull, where I think the data is actually written. Maybe it's like the RAM versus the hard drive kind of thing, and it's like, and anyways, I realized that happened. I got shocked. I snapped back into it, and brrr, I'm feeling all of this energy just pouring out of my spine into my throat in this most intense way. It exhausted me, and I actually fell asleep. Then I had a dream where I literally floated around, and then went forward, went all the way backwards, leaned forward, and then floated horizontally by my head. And it was in a room with my brother and my dad, and I was like, well, it's okay. I said, I know I'm floating. I was like, but it's all right. I was like, everything's fine. And I'm floating forward. So I've had one where, where I floated outside of myself that I'd done intentionally. That was the kind of thing where I practiced a method that was taught to me just randomly by my boss, this Mexican dude, really cool guy, who just was like, hey, I think you're going to be open to this. We're closing the store one day. And he taught me this method. And I had been practicing it. And I told my brother about it. We're going on vacation. We're with my family, and I'm on a plane going to Costa Rica. And I told him that. He's like, maybe that's true. And then when I got there at the hotel, I guess I'd done it so much that I just did it without thinking. And so I just did it. And I think, again, in Sylvan Muldoon's book, he describes that often these happen on vacations. Why? The free energy. Because you're no longer physically tied to all the stuff around you and all that. You've got all this free energy then. And it happened to me. Boom. I fell forward outside of myself, and I'm turning around. I'm looking at me, and I'm like, I see myself laying in the bed, and I turn, and there's my brother standing in the room. And I'm like, see, here I am, and there I am. And he said, he's like, oh, totally nonchalant, like, oh, I guess you're right then. I guess it is true. Yeah, he's the more reasonable guy that meet me in the middle. But those two experiences are a little more textbook. One happened to me while I was staying in Santa Cruz, going to college, studying linguistics during the summer, at the base of that hill. I don't know if anyone's been there, but that campus is like this hill in the redwoods. It's so beautiful, one of the most beautiful campuses in the world. But there was a thunderstorm that night, and it was like boom, 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 boom. And so I was kind of in the pit of the valley, nestled right up next to that mountain, at the bottom of like the long winding bike trail. If you were to just coast your bike all the way down into Harvey West, and I'm right there. And everybody got up in the house. Everybody's like, whoa, what was that? Holy cow. You'd never heard, this is like the description. You might have heard it like someone's playing drums in heaven. Like boom, 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 boom. It's that was it. And I said, okay, cool. I went back to bed after that. Yeah. I had this dream where I want to stand up and kind of show you, because it's like, but like where I was, yeah. So I'm like, where it was a very much a thing where like my body's moving involuntarily, or like my astral body's moving, and my head is like on this, like your head is on this axis, which is interesting. The head turning, which I described earlier, that made me float forward. Like it's kind of like there's an axis or something weird. I think all the chakras are axes in a way. And I didn't know I was floating up, really. Like I was floating up, but my head was slowly turning down. But by the time I looked down, I realized like, oh, my feet are off the ground and I'm going up more and more, right? And then as soon as the time, and my head is moving at this constant rate, and I'm floating at this very constant rate, and it's involuntary. And by the time I look up 100%, I got struck by lightning right here, right in my solar plexus. And I don't think it was real lightning, but I do think it was real lightning, if I can tell you that. Like some spiritual form of lightning or something. Like it, and I don't think it was any coincidence. I don't think it was a figment of my imagination, because of the way the things were moving, and because of how I experienced it. It was realer than real, realer than life. I've been shocked with electricity a lot of times, and that was something.
And how did the next day feel after? Did that shift anything in your life, or after that happened?
That one, I have to say, I think yes. Like I have a lot of experiences where, and I'm sensitive to the very subtle shifts that happen to me. And so for me, it's like, it's very hard to describe how one's perception changes. It's kind of like what happened. Did the lens get wider or more acute, or like what was there another dimensionality added to it? did the frequency raise? I think that's what happens a lot of the time, is somehow you're shifting in the frequency. And but I even, like I told you, I got goosebumps earlier.
Mm-hmm.
I this is you didn't mention, I mentioned I rap, but
Mm-hmm.
I did rap a little. I
Mm-hmm.
I'm about conscious rap though. I'm about rap. For me, I didn't actually appreciate rap at all, because all I heard my brothers playing when I was young um was like, well, maybe I thought the Beastie Boys was okay when they did a little bit. That's kind of not the same rap, but it's still really rebellious. But it's got a little more meaning than like NWA, who's just like, or Too Short by all means. Is very disrespectful to women.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's making money, and maybe he's not that serious. I heard him in one documentary give him credit where he's like, I'm actually do that stuff. He's like, that's like, but but like it sells, who's gonna blame him? Uh, so and what he does with that money is more where I would say, but in power to him, what does he want to do with it? But that's energy. We can transmute energy, and I'm not going to judge anyone for doing that.
Right.
If he didn't do it, someone else would make that money, right? So
Mm-hmm.
so there's but basically I heard all that kind of rap, and I would just be trying my best not to let it drive me nuts in my own head, because I couldn't change the situation. They're just blasting it. And so I had the worst view of rap, because I'm raised with my dad. I'm a very moral person, if I can't sit well, if something doesn't sit well with me, I don't sleep well. I don't
Mm-hmm.
do things that I don't feel good about. But I'm also a deep person. Like, I like to think, and I read every book in my children's library when I was a kid. I have a lot of thoughts, a lot of abstract thoughts, and I'll listen when I started to hear things like KRS-One,
Mm-hmm.
Diggable Planets. Though I'd say those two things. My friend introduced me to them when I started more smoking weed, I would say, and after I was shifting out of like the pattern of life that was attached to more of the suicidal thoughts and stuff. I yeah, marijuana is a very healing thing for me. And I went to, so I went a whole different direction with rap. I was like, oh my God, this is the format where you can put the most words in the
Right.
least amount of space. People can get the most information from
Mm-hmm.
this. This is the
Mm-hmm.
best. And I said, I started writing, and I think I threw the first rhyme away, but the second one, I started collecting them. I was like, I'm on to something. And I started stacking rhymes, and I loved it. I'm not well published, but I do plan to publish. But for me, it's definitely more of a therapeutic thing, and something that I engage because I'm a true artist about it. Sorry, I'm not just
Right.
doing it for everyone else and for the money or anything like that. I have to take care of my kids, so being a speech therapist is my priority. That makes more money than risking myself on an art career.
Mm-hmm.
I feel though I identify more as a poet than even as a rapper. But I feel it's a definitely rhyming poetry, and it's inspired by contemporary poetry, which is rap.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so I think that's where was I going with that is what was your question again?
That was yeah, I'm just asking, after having your out of body experience, what was
Oh
your
yeah,
life was your life different
hmm
after,
So I was trying to describe how sensitive I am to things, and that is one way that can tell. Um, I can tell, like, whoa, that song was deep. Like, I got goosebumps. I'm like, whoa, like I'm seeing things differently now. The whole world, they explain something different to me. See, and I realized, I was like, those songs you don't forget. And some
Mm,
artists, they got like one song like that on the album, like one heartfelt, insightful type of song. And some artists, that's their whole album. And it's
right.
like, and some of the, they all have different energies levels and how they go about it in different ways. But for me, like being able to be sensitive to that, like, and I think I'm being sensitive to the freed energy actually too, in my own mind, like pursuing like, oh, that thought like dispels something. But I think like just being very sensitive to paying attention to subtle energies is what I was trying to get at with all that long explanation.
Mm,
Was how I would say that, like, yes, things change, but
mm,
like how to describe them exactly is like, was there one major shift? That's the thing about my whole life. If I had one major shift, it's what I opened this up with, talking about my suicidal experience. Like, that set me on a trajectory, I would say, to like suppose there's creation, right? Here's up there is my light, right? Boom. And it's all coming from a central source. Or like suppose I'm like a sun right here, it's in the middle of me, like everything expanded outward. But like I told you, everything is stemmed from a creator, like in different directions, even before time and space. If everything stemmed out, so like at any given moment, like there's directionality, right? Like it's going a certain place from which it stemmed. And
mm,
no doubt you could like say, I'm not gonna like line up with where it stemmed from. I'm gonna just go this way, sideways, or I'm gonna go like wander off over here or aimlessly, kind of not knowing which way to follow the light, so to speak. Do you know what I mean?
mm, mm-hmm,
And but what my experience did was said, oh no, I'm lining up with the middle of it. And I'm like, and if I'm off, I notice. Can I
I
just say
see.
that?
I
And
see.
I can tell you how I figured that out too. But lining myself up with the will of the all, as I like to call it.
Mm,
I mean, I think it calls itself many things, and sometimes through me. And
lining yourself up with the will of the all. I like that.
yeah,
Always reminds me of the Saint Germain teaching of I am that I am, and having that be your mantra as you go through life, because it's one thing, it is so open-ended. We often put these prescriptions on who we are, but really we are so much more.
yeah,
So to say, I am one with the all is opening yourself up to the infinite possibilities and the
yeah.
incredible wisdom of the universe. And
And, and if the
mhm,
seed of my soul can be like, beyond this dimension, right now, there's many other dimensions happening simultaneously. Like,
yes,
if the seed of my soul, you can't see me moving it, but I might be moving it right now, right? If that
mhm,
can be more lined up with that central light source,
mm,
then of course I'm going to be paying attention to different trajectories. You know what I mean? Like,
mhm,
there's life that makes life. All life is living. And I think there's sometimes, though, you can easily see here, maybe there's a life that takes life from a lot of things.
right,
And then you might say that's bad. Like, so there's good and bad, kind of like there's the win, where it's like in permaculture, there's a plant that's symbiotic with another plant and creates shade and adds nutrients at the same time. And this one, and you'll see
mm,
like nature will fill in every single gap and crevice with more life, and like pack it all
mhm,
in there. And then,
mhm,
yeah, one thing eats another thing, but it goes right into it and it just gets bigger. The whole thing gets to keep expressing itself and enjoying itself in all these different aspects. Then we come along, clear cut the forest. But maybe we're taking the wood and building something, but for humans, and I don't want to judge any single act, but I think in general, you get what I'm saying. Like, you could view
yeah,
something as like adding to or taking away from this life force energy, at least from your perspective, right? Uh,
right,
and so it's like there's a relativity game to it, and
right,
and I think it's a divine plan, and it all goes together.
yes,
And I just
I,
want to say, I am that I am is like the best answer probably to my original question, like, why am I me? But
mm,
but without the experience that went with my answer, the light, I am
mhm,
that I am is just words, right?
right, mhm,
But it could mean I am that I am. I just needed to actually see what I am and
right,
experience what I am, which we all are.
mhm,
We all are. Love, really. I mean, I like love because it's the sun rays. It's unconditional. It's giving out in all directions without expecting anything in return. And that's how I'm describing the creator. I use
mm,
that metaphor, and I
I
think
love that.
that is what it is.
I love that. That's so true. I love that metaphor of the sun's rays, because it just warms our skin and it's not asking for anything in return. It's just that's a great. metaphor because it's
self-sacrifice. So
self-sacrifice.
I
It's
mean, yeah,
hard
it's
for
giving out its sun rays. It doesn't even want them back.
no, it doesn't.
Have it, have it.
Just pours into your skin and gives you delicious warmth.
Uh,
So people that might want to be listen to your music is where can they find your music?
yeah, yeah. I don't have a lot of it published. I have about 10 albums. No, there will be a time when I release all my stuff, and I do want to make more constant content as well. I think there's going to be a time and place for all that. I'm not the kind of guy
Mm-hmm.
to like drop the ball in the
Mm-hmm.
long run. I got a whole life to live. But yeah, you can look at Soup 127. So that's SUP. My nickname is Soup ever since I was a little kid. Soup, right? But I write it with the German umlaut, SUP, because I like graffiti, and I learned to tag my name, and so SUP, and it's also like a little smiley face, SUP with the two dots, and 127. That's my birthday and my lucky number, and one of the ways I check my alignment, with
Mm-hmm.
everything. It's a kind
Cool.
of yeah. So
So
it's that. Or you could write
Soup
SOUP 127. I don't know YouTube. And I
YouTube.
got an album on pardon my French, but I was a very rebellious youth when I named my first album, and it's called "Get Your Own Fucking Water." It's named after a painting my brother made that described my attitude. I just felt like it was
Mm,
cool. So, but
cool.
you can bleep that if you want. But so I mean, I gotta, I made it hard to promote, so it's just kind of out there. But you can get it on Spotify and
Okay,
YouTube
cool,
and
cool.
and
Soup
any other
one two
platform.
seven.
Yeah.
Awesome. And how about would you be interested in people getting in touch with you for the speech language pathology work that you do?
Um, I mean, yes and no. I mean,
Mhm.
yes, I'm always open to opportunity. I don't want to close myself any doors to anybody. And I can't even conceive what the creator has in store for me. So that's why I'm always like that. But at the same time, there are not enough of us. It's a great career. I encourage everyone to become no,
Okay.
because there's a growing need. Communication is so important, and and there's not enough of us to support the needs of everyone. So there's a lot of job security in it. If you have a passion about communication and service, being of service to others, it's incredibly rewarding. Um, and I'll just say, yes, I would love to um, be of service to other people in that way. It's also lucrative. I'll say that because yeah, because there's not enough of us in a sense, and it takes a lot of. I mean, I have a linguistics degree on top of it, so I'm like extra qualified, and I have all this passion for communication in a lot of ways. But I'm also, everyone's got their own strengths and weaknesses in that field.
Mhm.
But I like to do accents. I like to do everything. So I mean, it's. I
Cool.
have a little more on the go way about going about it. We all have different strengths and weaknesses, but yeah, if you want to reach out to me with that,
I'll
uh,
put a link in
yeah,
the notes here for people to get in touch with you if they like to learn more about that. But
yeah,
I wanted to start. Yes, we
no, go
starting
for
to
it.
wind it down. I really just want to express gratitude for you coming on and just being vulnerable and for talking about your story and for and just for sharing. You're such an open vessel and you don't hold back and I really appreciate that and I appreciate who you are and your journey and just thank
Dude,
you for being here.
I feel so much love from you right now, bro. And that was why when I was watching uh, your YouTube channel, I was very struck by like, dude, I definitely align with this brother. And I want to share my experiences with you, and I just want to say like gratitude tenfold. No,
Oh,
I feel gratitude is the first for me because that
mm,
humbles you and makes you kind of like surrender. Like I can't do this without someone else doing something for me. I got to be grateful, like to the
mm,
creator, whatever. And then service is just your way of giving back. And I think what happens after that is you become prosperous. You get protected and you become
mm,
prosperous. And I think that just if I could, yeah, use that as kind of a closing statement. Oh, actually, there's one last thought I do want to help add because you
yeah,
said the mantra. I am what I am.
Yes.
So if I got a mantra for you that I like, and
Yes.
maybe you can add this to every interview, like, what's your mantra? I don't
Oh,
know.
that's
I don't know. You know, but mine is, well, in the context of Christ, you know, at least what I'm feeling right now is die to yourself daily.
mm,
Yeah,
that's deep. That
yeah.
that that resonates in a lot of ways because it's so true. We get RJ Spenna is a great teacher that I listen to, and he talks about he doesn't say die to yourself daily. He talks about just shutting off your thoughts and shutting off your ego, and that's kind of what that is, you know, when you and yeah, that's a powerful teaching.
Oh man, you giving me another one.
That's good.
This one is just kind of a trick. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I know it'll work with you. Or well, maybe it doesn't. Whatever. It's because I heard you say this in your other one, and I just want to say I love you challenge. I love
Oh
you challenge.
yeah,
I
I
love you.
love you. I love you.
I've been doing that all July. But I want to say also not thinking is loving.
Mm,
Don't think about it. Just love it. Yeah.
yes.
Does that work for
Don't think
everybody?
about it. Just love it. I love it.
You always cut them off before they get their thoughts any farther. You say, no, you say, oh, no, 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 no. Not thinking is loving. Ah, stop, stop. Yeah.
Well, appreciate you, Soup. Thank you so much, and I hope to have you on again. And much love to you, brother.
You too, brother. Thank you so much. I'm gonna check RJ Spin out, and I'll be watching for your content too. And everybody out there, click like and subscribe for Kevin Pratt, right? Oh,
Yeah,
this.
thank you. Thank
You
you.
got it. You got it.
All right, brother.
Have,
One love.
I'll see you later. Have a great night.
You as well.